Charles, I missed the mark. I should have gotten some Bernard Herrmann music to dramatically take us into the Near Widow segment. It is Sunday with Charles, but you're not here. So, how are you, Charles?
I'm in good form. Thanks for asking. I hope you're well. I hope our viewers are doing well. I'm not going to say where I am, but I am not inside the United States. And I'm actually very happily visiting a place that I've been in the past many times. And without revealing exactly where I am, I'll just say it's really sad to see that New York is not the only major city in the world that's crumbling before our very
Oh,
eyes. This is another major city, and it's got the same sorts of problems. It has, you arrive at this big airport and it's run down, despite the fact that a lot of money's gone into it. The infrastructure is not great. You head towards the city, and when you get into this major city, you see what you see in Manhattan. You see the core, you see a whole bunch of buildings that have been renovated, but now they're empty. You see beggars on the street. Indeed,
hmm.
almost the same concentration as you see in central Manhattan.
Wow.
You see a lot of tourists and not many of the traditional English people. Now, that could be because I now revealed I was in England. Okay, so
Well, hey, now people know you're definitely not a spy, Charles, because that was bad.
that's right. But anyway, maybe these people who might be in this city normally are off on their estates or their weekend places or whatever. But it definitely does not have a buzz of enthusiasm. There are a lot of long faces, and I think that in part reflects the grim underlying reality for wider Europe. I mean, Europe, I remember when Europe came together with the European Union in 1997, we had this fund that we set up, and all of a sudden, the stationery, I mean, the financial statements, instead of being denominated in Irish pounds, came in with this weird E symbol, and all the
uh-huh.
numbers made no sense. And I called the manager. I said, "What the fuck is this bullshit?" And this is Irish. "Oh, we're part of Europe now." So no, no. It's in European, I mean, in Irish currency. That's what I signed. Anyway, there was a lot of enthusiasm initially, I think, when the many nations that today are part of the EU thought we'll just come together and create an economic association that's immediately bigger and in theory more consequential than the United States. And on paper, yeah, they sort of did that. But the reality is, instead of having, let's say, pre 1989 US land, where we had a much smaller government, we had a bigger military footprint relative to private sector activity in the US than we have now, but we had a much smaller social services operation in the US. I guess now we've given away that I might be in London, but that's okay.
But didn't you say
Um,
that?
I said England, but that's all
Oh,
right.
but well, anyway,
It's okay. It's all right. Yeah.
nobody mess with Charles in England.
Well, we'll see. Soon we'll see. But anyway, the level of buzz that greeted the EU back in 97, 98, the level of buzz that greeted the theory that with the Soviet Union dismembered and China embracing capitalism and India rejecting socialism for capitalism, I think there was a theory that England and the EU would prosper in that environment. And instead, I think they've layered on so much bureaucracy. You have in England, you have in London, you have local council government, you have then a wider city government, borough government, the national government, the EU government. You got regulations on everything, and it's fine for a bunch of pointy-headed supposed experts in government councils to mandate how much a worker's going to make or what kind of rate of return capital might get. That's just idiotic thinking. I mean, the markets are so advanced today that people with money can invest however they want, anywhere they want, legally. Um, and once the Poindexters start making it very difficult for people to compete inside a country, the capital leaves, which is, I think, what's been happening throughout England and throughout Europe. And it's about to start accelerating in, of all places, China and possibly India.
Hmm.
Excuse me.
Speaking of worldwide investing, Charles, Sam Bankman-Fried back in jail. I think this happened Friday. He's texting his girlfriend or something weird, but they're saying that this is witness tampering. I have a feeling this is going to be referenced in something that's coming up for Trump, because they want to be able to say that Trump is witness tampering so that they can probably sanction him based on these court orders that have been coming out.
Well, let's just dwell a second. We talked about scam in the very beginning. The notion that this kid, this punk, would rise as quickly as he rose under the aegis of his two parents, who were tenured law professors. Was it Stanford where they were tenured?
Yes.
No, the notion that he would have their protection, and that these law professors who are radical leftists would allow their son to be in the center of a scandal wherein he channeled more money to the Democratic Party, I think was it 2020 or 2022 cycle, than everybody except George Soros. And nobody in his family would have said, now listen, scam, what's really going on here? I think the likelihood here is that Scam and his parents were in on this deal, that Scam is not smart enough to have done this on his own, but perhaps his parents are. And together, they perpetrated a huge fraud on the American electorate and indeed on the world. And there possibly are Republicans who benefited from scams, but this to me is about on the same level as what's going on in Haiti. Where I don't know if you've been reading the news on Haiti, but the situation is so dire in Haiti that even the gangsters are scared of the situation. I mean, it's murderous rampaging. Nobody's safe. No diplomats are safe. And this is a place that has been difficult in the past, but it's now unmanageable thanks to what happened really under George Bush, W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and Obama, when in 2010, remember, they created the Clinton-Bush Haiti Fund, which was small in comparison to the 10 billion or so that was rumored to have been sent towards Haiti. No one will account for what happened to the money that went to Haiti. Does that sound familiar? No one will account what happened to COVID. No one will account what happened in the various Arab Spring revolutions and other revolutions around the world that we lead. And now look at Haiti. And my attitude is it's very interesting the way I was brought up, and both at home and then later in business. You were given a task to do in business, and if you could do that one task well, then you'd be given a bigger task and a bigger task and a bigger task. The same idiots who are screaming in front of microphones about how we have to save this and save that and save the whales and stop the climate, whatever. These same idiots need to explain what happened to $10 billion in Haiti, and why we believe as America that we in 2023 can lead the world to do anything positive with this team. Where is the evidence of that? Because I don't see any evidence of that. This is, to me, when you have children who've been given toys and they go crazy with them and they create chaos with them or maybe hurt people with them, you take their fucking toys away. And you let them contemplate the situation, you hope that they will figure out they did something wrong and learn from their mistakes. That's what the American voters need to do to these drunk on spending politicians who are burning our money and letting our money be stolen in places like Ukraine now. And who knows what they want to do with our money in Niger.
Well, that's a good point. But Charles, before we move off of Sam Bankman-Fried too quickly, because we do need to talk about Haiti and Niger and all these other things. But, his parents being law professors at Stanford is critically important because Stanford has that thing, the Internet Observatory, and Obama has turned it into his, I don't know, like his West Coast, I don't know what. But people may not be aware that back in 2015, and I believe this was at the Stanford Internet Observatory that this thing was signed. There was like a whole big event, and Obama signed this executive order promoting private sector cybersecurity information sharing, which says that they want nonprofit organizations. It says Section 1 policy, in order to address cyber threats to public health and safety, national security, and economic security of the United States, private companies, nonprofit organizations, executive departments and agencies. Executive departments, this is sort of like working groups, disinformation governance boards, etc., and other entities must be able to share information related to cybersecurity risks and incidents. Charles, I allege that this document is used as what I've often heard described as a legal basis to do something. You could cite this document in court and say, hey, this is why we did it. There's a presidential executive order that says all these things should be working together to throw you off of Twitter or do whatever. X.
Yeah, again, I don't like executive orders in general, but I especially don't like Obama era and Biden era executive orders.
Right.
Because, and for that matter, Bush era executive orders. I think the concept of an executive order, if you want to say, have an executive order that says the garbage cans throughout the White House should be emptied every 6 hours,
right,
by people in little white suits, that's okay with me, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to, in effect, alter the constitutional balance of power, or set up a system that can be used to target your political enemies and protect your political allies, that shouldn't be something that you can do by executive order. And I think that really Team Bush in the whole Patriot Act and prosecuting the war on, I call it the war on error, but he calls it the war on terror, which I'm not even sure that W knew what he was doing back then. But these sorts of executive orders to me are very, very dangerous, particularly in the hands of bite me. I mean, before we go too much away from the epic art department production here, I mean, this is a masterclass poster. Really is fantastic.
Did you notice what? Well, we've got President Biden in the role of Jeffries, and he's voir looking. Do you see what he observes there, Charles? It's quite interesting what's happening across the way.
Yeah, thank you for letting me lose my dinner tonight. Thinking of that, it's disgusting.
You were Hitchcock in this depiction, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, a younger Hitchcock, I guess. Yeah, but this guy Biden. Clarice Feldman, who I think is a very astute writer. She's got I think it's called Clarice's Pieces on American Thinkers is what she talks about, and she and I think also Andrea Woodberg, who's another very important American thinker person. They're reminding everybody, as I think would certainly be the case if we were talking about Trump, that Joe Biden isn't just handsy. Joe Biden is somebody who credibly stands accused by Tara Reade of despicable acts when he was a senator against somebody who was a Democrat who he thought was going to be, a willing Monica Lewinsky-style participant. And Tara was shocked by the overture, and her allegations, I think, are well known, that she wrote a book, and magically that book was supposed to air before the 2020 election, and somehow it didn't. It hasn't gotten the same sort of coverage in the press. But when we start with the Tara Reade incident, and then we consider the criminal, the alleged, and I think it's almost to my satisfaction proven, the criminal, the evolution of the criminal conspiracy to sell out America by making contributions to Joe's family, let's just say. We haven't pinned it into his personal account yet, but to Biden family members. This is a longstanding criminal conspiracy, frankly, both to do it and then to cover up the fact that it has been done. And in the midst of it, we have how many? This isn't just sexual hijinks. This is perversion. We have O'Keefe, James O'Keefe, getting the diary of one of Hunter's sisters, in which the allegations appear to be that Joe was messing around with one of his daughters. We have Hunter sleeping with his dead brother's wife. We have
Also, weird pictures of the daughter, the 14, the niece, whatever. She's like naked in the bed or something.
Right, and this Scott Brown, he's a bit of a, he's a I think fairly physically big person. I think his wife was I may have this wrong. She's some kind of athlete, maybe a basketball player. And I believe Scott Brown. I believe that Joe Biden, would have gotten inappropriately gropey in one of these swearing-in ceremonies. And to me, that is not simply about sex. That's about power.
Right.
That's, Biden letting people know just how powerful he is and making these comments, you don't touch a Biden, but meanwhile, I'm going to touch your wife. I mean, that's the kind of behavior that is disgusting and should disqualify Joe Biden from holding any position of trust. And any person who now would, as Chuck Schumer, who's another repugnant individual, would get up and pretend that there aren't very serious problems at this point with Biden. Very, very serious problems. And a normal, unprotected American in a position of power would, first of all, have resigned in disgrace well before now, would be begging for mercy. That's a responsible person, but not Biden. He's on vacation again, because he hasn't taken enough time off. And now they're trying to force this absurd special counsel concept. We'll take the person who distinguished himself by failing to see the obvious crimes involving the Biden family, and then by crafting a deal that was so stupid and bad that even a judge had to say, no, you can't do that. That's ridiculous. We'll put that idiot in the role of special counsel.
But look at this headline, Charles. The Washington Post simping for this special counsel. Republicans who demanded special counsel to investigate Hunter Biden aren't satisfied. I mean, if we demand an investigation and then they select a blind man and we're not satisfied, is this an investigation or a joke?
Oh, come on. This is the same paper and the same team that wasn't satisfied with the 2016 election.
Right.
And has spent ever since then falsely accusing repeatedly Trump and his family of being Russian agents.
Right.
This team, there's no, I stopped reading, as you know, the New York Times a long time ago. The Washington Compost, again, I would rather read the instructions for a shitty Korean piece of electronic garbage in Kinglish than try to get through the Washington Post. I wouldn't even read the cartoon section of the Washington Post, assuming there is one.
Do they have that? Yeah.
I think they do. That's what's separated from the Times.
They call it the news.
The Times is have cartoons.
Yeah, I mean the whole Trump-Russia nonsense, Charles. It's really absurd, particularly considering between you and I, we've been through this evidence that suggests that Ben Wittes, Andrew Weissman, various people in the Department of Justice in the Robert Mueller investigation not only just to say that they concocted the Russia hoax is one thing. We've been looking now at secret agreements signed with Felix Sater, an individual who insinuated himself into Trump Tower with the offer of developing real estate in Russia. I have been asking Andrew Weissman via X if the members of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence were aware that Weissman had signed 2 secret agreements with this guy when he testified in 2017 about Russiagate. I suspect they were not aware. Now what I want to know is, did Adam Schiff know? Did Devin Nunes know? Who on that committee knew? Nobody? Everybody? It's a good question, isn't it?
I think it's a good question. I mean, there was also the Tucker interview with the head of the Capitol Police.
Oh, yeah.
When that's a must watch. That's almost an hour long. But one of the things that I thought was really fascinating there, and it speaks to the points you were just making, that the commission head, that Benny Thompson, who is a reprehensible human being. I mean, he's somebody who is who holds views that are so far out of the mainstream Yet he was put in charge of this thing, and he admitted to the head of the Capitol Police that he was told that his inquiry into what happened on January 6th could not in any way address Nancy Pelosi's role.
That's crazy.
Well, again, that's why my position, that's why I go back to my position on the press corps. My position on the press corps is it should not cover the Biden White House at all. There should be no coverage. If they want to put up, propaganda written by Cringe or written by the other idiots who work for Cringe, let them do that themselves. Let them post it directly let them have their own Substack. But if you're not going to allow serious investigative journalists to get into the facts of what's going on. I read something, I think Simon Ateba was pointing out, or it might have been somebody, the guy that we were fortunate enough to have on through your good offices a while back. I think that it's the case now that you cannot, through the White House website, the main website, you can't now go and investigate history before Biden on the White House website directly the way you used to be able to do.
Interesting.
So they basically made the focus be the Biden White House. They've limited the number of people who have credentials to go and cover it. The White House press corps has accepted the notion that Cringe can get up there and say, I'm not going to address that question. Oh, yes, you are, bitch. Yes, you are. Because if you don't, we will. And, that's really, to me, the people who puff and pretend that they're White House press people, except for Simon, are in the main, they're just weak, unprincipled, and they're not doing the job that needs to be done. Hence, you and I have to try to do some of it, and many others are trying to do more of it altogether. But the mainstream media in America and in the West has disgraced itself.
Did you see this, Charles? This is pretty awesome by Simon Ateba. He's suing Karine Jean-Pierre for discrimination. Isn't that awesome?
I think it's fantastic. I love this guy.
Yeah.
And he does. You see, the other thing that's really sad is that here in America, when you are you there?
Yeah.
I don't know if the screen just made a different weird sound. There are very few people in America who have spent time in sub-Saharan Africa. I'm one of them. Not a lot of time, maybe a year of my life, but that's a fair amount. And most people have views on race. The people who shout them the loudest are Black. And you have to, when you get into discussion on race and you're white, you can be told, look, what do you know? You're not Black. So therefore your views don't matter. And that's a completely, to me, that is just a ridiculous argument. If you consider the fact that in the United States, the Black population is about 13% of the total. So you're telling me, okay, you're experts on everything having to do with Black people, but because you're Black, you can't have a view on white people, which are 87% of the population, or non-Black. It's a silly argument, but that's one that we accept. And when we get to the subject of sub-Saharan Africa, there's a rich history there, and unfortunately, there's a lot of pain and sadness on that rich continent, and that rich continent is getting poorer every second, particularly given the fact that Victoria Nuland and Anthony, I Can't Stop Blinking, have now turned their malevolent eyes towards the continent once here.
Yeah, actually, Charles, we've got just one more minute here before we switch over to the sponsor exclusive segment that people are going to be able to watch on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I was not surprised, but I was very concerned when we heard news that Victoria Nuland showed up in Niger. Who the hell does this woman think she is, Charles? She's coming to a country. I'm surprised that this didn't work out even worse than it has. But, she goes there. She's going to tell these guys what to do.
Well, you heard, the reaction was not strong.
Right.
The coup leader said, if you attack us, we're going to kill the president.
Oy.
Which I think the president certainly has an unfortunate name.
What is his name?
President Bazoum.
Well, I'm sure it means something different in, I'm not sure what language is the main language there. But anyway, Charles, we're gonna end here, and people can join us for the sponsor exclusive First Amendment Forum coming up in just 5 minutes. Stay with us, everybody, and become a sponsor on Odyssey or Subscribestar or whatever platform you prefer. Help keep the show going, and don't miss this next segment. We'll be right back. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.